One of my favorite Disney moments as a kid was the Disney Afternoon, which was a cartoon block of Disney cartoons, not old stuff like Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck reruns, but these were actually new shows, some of which were based on other things. There was Rescue Rangers, Darkwing Duck, DuckTales, Gummy Bears, so many, they defined a generation. 90s kids, I'm talking to you. I want to kill myself. Anyway, I'm going to be looking at the video games based on all these games. I'll go through every single game, well, one game per series of all the cartoons that were in this massive franchise. Some better than others, so let's just get right into it. First up, Bonkers, which was made by Capcom for the Super Nintendo. Bonkers was kind of Disney's answer to a cartoon version of Roger Rabbit. Bonkers was actually supposed to be Roger Rabbit, but the whole rights between Warner and Disney was weird, so they just kind of had to create something else. But you can see the influence there. You got the cop with the Toon character solving crimes in Toontown. Like I said, he is basically a Roger Rabbit. There are some cameos from characters. They allude to Mickey, and they have the Mad Hatter from Alice in Wonderland in there and stuff, and it's cool. As for the game, it's kind of a solid platformer. It looks fairly nice. It's not one of the greats, I would say, but it's pretty decent. Not much to say. This is a franchise that I wish could have turned into a Kingdom Hearts thing where you meet all these huge famous cartoons, and Bonkers just wasn't like that. It's not as fondly remembered to me, but I remember enjoying it when I was a kid at least. Next up, we have Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers for the NES, also by Capcom. And it is an amazing game. Not only is it a good licensed property, but it's just a good platforming game. You can play as either Chip or Dale, and you just basically pick up items and you hit enemies with it. For those who don't know, Chip and Dale got their own series where they talked more fluently, and I guess you could even call it as a combination between those characters and fitting into like the Rescuers series of films, more or less. They were, mouse and chipmunks, and there were some other characters like a fly, and they basically took on missions to help people, essentially. No big was too small or big, as the theme song could say. So the game itself, just amazing graphics, amazing music. Capcom was killing it. I miss those days when they were in charge of so many Disney games. And they're not just like, yeah, it's good for license-based property. No, a lot of them are like so good. So let's just roll into the next one, which is Darkwing Duck, also in the NES, also Capcom. And it's a good game. Darkwing Duck was basically the duck version of Batman, essentially, or Inspector Gadget, and Launchpad made a cameo role in that series, along with so many other Disney cartoons. But he was just a crime fighter. He had all these wacky villains he was going after, and the game kind of tries to does that. He has all these weird gadgets and guns to use on enemies. It's pretty hard, as most NES games are at this time. It looks good, great music. It's not one that is especially remembered compared to some others like Rescue Rangers or the next one, but it's not terrible either. Which is to say, I think DuckTales is the most well-remembered Disney Capcom collaboration from that era on the NES. It even got a remake a year or two ago, and a lot of people didn't like it. They thought they ruined kind of what the original game was going for, in that it was just awesome gameplay. That's what the NES was just good for, just gameplay. But they added in a bunch of story stuff that people didn't like, that kind of cut up the action in weird ways, which is the complaint for a lot of games with heavy story. But anyway, back to DuckTales. This was introduced, basically Huey and Louie were Donald's nephews. He gave them over to his uncle Scrooge, and they went on a bunch of wacky misadventures with Launchpad, at the Beagle Boys, and it just has an awesome music, not only in the TV show but in the video game as well. So many memorable games. It's very hard. Mechanically, it's very hard to control, like the pogo stick. You gotta like maneuver your hands because it was so hard to control with so many limited buttons. But yeah, it's a great game. Really, really good. Still holds up. Hard, but still holds up. Now here's where things get a little hazier. I mentioned Darkwing Duck was kind of like Batman, but it was more like a goofy kind of Adam West Batman. Gargoyles, on the other hand, was Disney really trying to appeal to an older-ish audience, I would say. These gargoyles were cursed back in the medieval ages, and they came back into present society to fight crime as they're thought out, and there's some stuff. I never got into it as a kid. I don't know, it's just the gargoyle thing was just kind of a weird concept for me. The game isn't better. It is a really poor looking Sega Genesis game, an action brawler, and it's just confusing and it's not good. I know a lot of people do like Gargoyles, but the game, I don't think anybody can defend this one. It just goes to show, when Capcom's not involved, you get poor results in this era. Up next we have Goof Troop, which is a Capcom game on the SNES based on the show. Obviously, that's what I'm doing here. Fun fact, Shinji Mikami of Resident Evil fame got his start basically on this game. It's crazy. I had this game growing up. I believe it was like a bargain bin game that I think my parents got for me. And it's strange. It's kind of a puzzle Zelda type game. There are combat scenarios where you're fighting off enemies, picking up pots, and you do have some gadgets to help you along. But I remember getting stuck so much because the puzzles were just like mind-numbing. I mean, that's what, Shinji Mikami later did that for Resident Evil, and that's all it was, had the puzzles along with the action horror kind of vibe to it. Really crazy game to see the start of, the Lord of Resident Evil. Even though it's Capcom, despite what I've been saying, I don't quite like it. It's kind of a neat little game, but because I spent so many hours as a kid, it kind of scarred me. Learning it afterwards was kind of cool, like, oh wow, I can't believe I played this Resident Evil game back when I was super young and I had no idea. But yeah, I don't know, very conflicting feelings about Goof Troop. Next we have Tailspin, which takes Baloo from the Jungle Book series and makes into a fighter pilot. Again, another amazing theme song for the show. Not a good run of games. This one is for the Sega Genesis. It is a very ho-hum, clunky platformer. Not much to say about it. It's very ugly. It's just uninspired. It just doesn't control well. It's sad because there is an NES game we were using the plane, but that one's not great either, so I decided to have one where it's more, well, it looks like it's trying to do a little bit more, but again, not much. Sad because I love Tailspin. And last up, sorry to end on a dire note, but we have Timon and Pumbaa's Jungle Games, a mini-game collection for one of the latter cartoons in the show. Of course, you will know that these are characters from The Lion King that got their own show, which was an okay cartoon, not one of those classics really, even though The Lion King is an awesome movie. But the game, again, they're just mini-games, it's just, this one feels so cashed in, and you see me going, even though I went in alphabetical order, you kind of see me going from the best to the worst, and there's just, I don't know what to explain for that. I guess when they lost Capcom, they just kind of lost an inspiration. They gave it to people that didn't really know what they were doing besides like, hey, just make a game based on the show. It's fine. It's very, very sad, but at least I can remember the great games of the Disney Afternoon and the Disney Afternoon, and I hope some of you are discovering these games and those TV shows, because there's some really great ones. I can't believe there's never a Gummy Bears one. In my accompanying article, of course, I have a little bit more history on the actual Disney Afternoon itself. All the shows that were on there, the shows that didn't have video games, so the ones that you may know, like, hey, where's the Gummy Bears game? There wasn't one. And so many others didn't get one either. It's just crazy. I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope you enjoyed this, and until next time, bye! Boom,